Has Britt Baker versus Mercedes Moné lost the feeling? Have the vibes gone?
You're a fan of the vibes as well.
I love the vibes. The vibes, the feeling, I'm cool with that. I'm Ollie Davis. I'm joined by Luke Owen, DAD, not DMD this week. If you haven't already, please press the thumbs up button, give us a subscribe. Leave a comment down below with what you thought of this episode and send in your Omegachats to WrestleTalk.com/support, or we'll be reading every single one over $5 out before the end of the show.
Speaking of, apparently he is should be back by the end of the year.
Oh, that's great. I
Mr.
haven't
Omega.
heard this.
Yeah, it was on Wrestling Observer Radio. Dave has said that he's back training, so he's not going to be at All In, which was their original hope.
Yeah.
It was going to be him versus Okada. That's the match they wanted to be able to do. But they said that hopefully he'll be back by the end of the year. And when he is back, he's bringing Kota Ibushi with him as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so...
Well, hopefully Kota Ibushi's back to full health as well. I, before you said that, and every time you've said it's Omega or All In, I'm like, it's not. He's got too long to recover. As soon as you said, it'll be okay by the end of the year, my mind goes, he's there All In. I've played this game before.
You can hide him in a casino gauntlet.
Hide him in a casino gauntlet? No, just Okada. He doesn't have a challenger for All In. He's beaten Claudio.
Oh, is it? Well, he's not, because he's not facing Claudio next week.
Okada's facing Claudio
No, he's
next
not.
week.
They're having a face-to-face next week. They're not having a match next week.
Oh.
Because I think it's Claudio Okada at All In.
Oh. Are you 100% sure on that? Because I would say that AEW's marketing recently has been skew-if.
No, there was definitely advertised as a face-to-face next week. So it's not a match next week.
Maybe I just heard Excalibur and he goes, they go face-to-face. That sounds like a fight to me.
Well, it does, but it says on screen, face-to-face.
Well, it's just that so many people have guaranteed shots right now that aren't getting... Like, what, PAC's got one, the Acclaimed have one, so they're fighting the young FTR.
Darby's got his one for Grand Slam, but there's also going to be a casino gauntlet at All In to get a different title shot. Not for All Out, just... in general, you're going to get a title shot.
And Darby's already got a title shot on All In as well against the TNT title.
Yeah.
I'm a bit confused. When Mariah May came out with a pink belt, I was like, what? Did she win something? Is that Owen Hart?
Is that another CMLL title that I don't know of?
I forgot about the Owen Hart winners getting a belt.
Yeah, I think it's because Danielson doesn't carry his.
No one does.
But they do for 2 weeks.
Well, this is beyond 2 weeks.
Yeah,
That's what confused me.
Yeah.
And, was Ricky Steamboat advertised as a special guest referee?
No.
Just a special guest?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he was just advertised to be there, because it pops ticket sales.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, I actually enjoyed this show, by the way. Want to get that out front.
I thought this show was fine.
Filler episode.
It was. This was your classic 3 weeks out from the pay-per-view episode of a wrestling TV show. You've done some big angles to set up your big matches. You're saving your really big angles for your go-home shows and your penultimate shows and stuff. So you don't want to really do much in sort of the 3 week before the pay-per-view mark. So you just kind of do a bit of filler stuff. I thought the Tony Mariah stuff was like the best thing on the show. It's the stuff that I'm most excited for when it comes to All In.
Well, that was a hot angle. Great opener and closer matches in the ring. But let's talk about the Brick House Kamille squash match. She just squashed one person in her in-ring AEW debut last week. Can't remember their name, I'm sorry. And this week it was Jasmine Howe and Clara Carter. So it was a handicap match and she killed them both. Mercedes Moné gets in the ring and she's like, I thought Mercedes actually did a really good job.
Which is interesting because one of the first things I saw, I don't go on Twitter much these days, which I say a lot on these shows, but I do go after I've watched the show to kind of see what the general vibe is. And the first thing I saw was Conrad being like, this is bad.
Yeah, I noticed a bit of that reaction. Like, Mercedes isn't any good. I thought, well, maybe it's because I was so down on her pre-heel turn.
Yeah.
But I'm really enjoying her work now. Like, but when she just looked around and was like, "That don't you dare chant DMD."
Yeah.
And the crowd didn't really chant DMD. I wouldn't put that on her. I thought she was doing a fun heel act there.
Me too. I actually think she's doing... since the heel turn, I think it's been great. I didn't hate the pre-heel turn as much as you weren't getting on with it.
Couldn't stand it.
But I do think it's so much better now.
So Kamille and Mercedes are out there post-squash match win. And she reminds us all that Britt Baker was suspended by the EVPs. Haha, all the heel authority figures are in cahoots. Yuck, yuck, yuck. And Tony Schiavone stands up on the commentary desk. I've just heard that Tony Khan has lifted the suspension.
No, he'd heard through Christopher Daniels that Tony Khan had lifted the suspension.
Are you making it? Because
No, that is what he said.
That is what he said.
Yeah. Christopher Daniels has just informed me that Tony Khan has just informed him that Britt Baker's suspension has been lifted.
Right. I think, because if you read my notes, you'll see what I was thinking about.
Not Adam Pearce.
And I didn't mean to write Adam Pearce. Christopher Daniels is now just wish Adam Pearce in my head.
Come on, Timu, it's 2024.
Yeah. And yeah, like build up. I'm like, okay, she's not suspended. She can come down, kick Moné's ass. And Tony goes, and she's here on satellite.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, that was late.
So
for a baby face as well.
So Baker's up on the screen, and she cuts, I thought, a pretty good promo, actually, on Mercedes Moné. She had this very good line in there, which is like, I've been here since day one, and you don't really know what it means to be this. Plus, we all know what happens when the going gets tough for you. You cry about it, take your ball, and go home. And the crowd, popped for that line, because that's always been the thing about Mercedes. There was the stories of her and her crying in the locker room at WrestleMania because she was going to do the tag titles and all this sort of stuff. And then, of course, there's the walkout with her and Naomi. So I thought that was actually a really good line by Britt Baker. And I think that then helps sort of the topic that we've got for this episode, the start of this episode today, is the crowd were really positive behind Baker.
They did the DMD.
They did the DMD. They popped when she was on the screen. They were booing Mercedes. Going into this show, I was curious as to whether or not that would be flipped based on the news that's come out since last Friday, where Baker has been legit suspended. I think the suspension is now over. She's on TV next week.
Well, yeah, because Tony Schiavone heard through Christopher Daniels that Tony Khan had lifted the suspension.
Exactly. So I was curious on that one, and I wrote my notes here. Well, if you were worried that the crowd weren't going to buy her as a babyface anymore, you don't need to worry, because the crowd were still buying her as a babyface. So I feel like a lot of sort of my concerns going into this are very much within that bubble. Like I'm very fully aware that it's a bubble mentality.
I push back a bit on the bubble because, yeah, the crowd there did pop for stuff. I would say the heat wasn't really there for the Mercedes bit, but they popped. They did DMD, but that's kind of just Pavlovian response at this point. And they did pop when Britt Baker appeared on the screen, although I do think they thought she was then going to show up in person. Really weird booking move for a babyface to do that reveal.
Yeah. If Tony Khan's only just lifted the suspension, she can't get to the building.
Why would it just happen right now?
Because he made the decision on the show.
The last...
He was watching Mercedes do her promo, and he was like, do you know what? Daniels, come here. Chris, come over here. You go tell Tony Schiavone that I'm lifting her suspension, and she's going to be on Dynamite next week. Yeah. And then he's like, can someone get Britt Baker on the phone? Because we'll dial her in via satellite. Is anyone got Skype downloaded on their PC? Yeah. We can do it through that.
Yeah. Okay. You're winding me up. I get it. I get it. You agree with me? You're just pushing my buttons. So, but when it happened, and as soon as Britt Baker appeared on screen, and I've not this whole backstage drama thing. I've followed it, but I've not really gotten too emotional in either way. When she appeared on the screen, because she has been this really cool, vengeful baby face since she came back in the last couple of weeks. I think they've done a great job. The Comic-Con angle was cool. When she appears on the screen, I just went, oh, I actually don't feel as behind you as before. Again, whatever's gone on in the locker rooms. It's just the fact that there is some sort of drama, obviously, backstage in AEW, and that gives me bad memories.
Yeah.
So anyone associated with that, although I didn't feel that way about MJF, I guess, I just sort of get a little bit, I don't know whether to get behind you.
I think for me, it's less that. I don't think that the backstage drama has made me less invested in Britt Baker, the character, or her journey going towards the TBS Championship, but it has to a degree, because I was so into this story last week. Last Wednesday, I was really, really into this angle. It was in my top 3, like, matches going into All In, Danielson and Swerve, Toni and Mariah, and the Britt Baker, Mercedes Moné. Like, those are the 3 matches I was most excited for. Like, I'm really excited for Will and MJF, but only that's because I saw them have that banger match on Dynamite. But actual, like, story, that's the ones that I was most invested in. But then watching this episode, when Britt Baker came on screen, I didn't have that, oh, yeah, let's go get it. I kind of had this, I'm not as into this as I was 7 days ago. And I guess that is because of the news that came out about her.
Yeah, so me and you both independently had this vibe.
Yeah, we didn't discuss this, like, we didn't come to this decision together.
No.
We had the same feeling separately. Then when we saw each other in the office today, we were like, did you feel a bit weird about it?
Yeah.
And that's why when we're talking about what we wanted to lead with on this show, like originally we were talking about doing maybe about Swerve. I had a thumbnail made up for Toni and Mariah. But the thing that we kind of wanted to talk about was this. And kind of
those other things, nothing really progressed.
Well, yeah, and I think this is an interesting topic, and I was curious to see what the online reaction to this was. I we'll be called AEW haters or whatever it is. I don't know whatever people call them nowadays. But we'll get some backlash for this, I'd imagine. But I think it's an interesting topic, and I don't think that you and I are alone in this.
Well, you said when you went on Twitter, you saw, oh, this is bad. Was that directed at Mercedes?
That was, I believe that was Mercedes, yeah.
Oh, okay. And when I went on Reddit, people weren't into... Yeah, because I don't go on Twitter. You don't go on Reddit.
Yeah.
But we come together like a Venn diagram here. And, yeah, I think people were more down on Mercedes than Britt, which is weird. I don't know.
But I think that's sort of a holdover. I think Mercedes, even when she was Sasha Banks, has had this vibe about her. That there are some people who just do not like Sasha Banks / Mercedes Moné. So nothing that she does. And like I think you can see it in some of the comments that we get or in the live chat.
Yeah.
There are just some people who don't like her. So even when she is doing great things, they inherently do not like what she's doing. So therefore it's like, no, it's rubbish and I don't like it.
Do you think we would be feeling this way, though, even with all the backstage drama and whatever it is, if this was a better angle?
No.
Like, if Britt does just appear on screen, or she's on satellite originally, and, oh, it's a ruse, take that EVPs and CEO, and Britt Baker, like, lays out Kamille. Or maybe even Kamille, it's a 2-on-1, and Kamille destroys Britt Baker. Get some blood in there. Well, fire up the feud.
So what you're saying is, do you think you'd react more to this if it was a better angle?
Yes. It's like now we're talking about it. I'm like, well, is this because of the backstage drama, or actually was the angle just a bit rubbish?
Well, again, we are on the 3 week out from the pay-per-view. You don't want to do that angle now, 3 weeks out from the pay-per-view. You want to do that angle 2 weeks out from the pay-per-view, 1 week out from the pay-per-view.
Unless
3 weeks out.
Unless you've got to counteract some negative press about your babyface in the feud.
I think this was always going to be the case. But I think if there was no backstage news, if there was if Meltzer didn't break the news that Britt Baker and MJF got into this altercation backstage and Britt Baker got suspended, not in front of people, if that news had
just fell down.
How strong are you?
There shouldn't be anything behind.
No, it's blank back there. It's just like it goes into a corner.
It's not like Parasite, is there? We've actually got a family of people living.
No, it's not like that. What was I saying? So
Sorry.
Yeah, if Meltzer hadn't broken the story that Britt Baker has been suspended, I think my reaction to this angle would have been, oh, great, the suspension's been lifted. She'll be back on TV next week. Not a particularly hot angle, but at least the story is progressing. My reaction to it, however, is just that, oh, yeah, they did an angle here. Wasn't particularly a great angle. And I feel like I'm less into this story now than I was 7 days ago. And I think that is because of the news, not because of the angle. Perhaps I'm wrong on that. We'll certainly see how I feel in another 7 days' time.
Let's see what you all think on the Omegachats, WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out every single one over $5. Matt Hennessy has a run of chats, thank you. Has AEW lost the feeling? I think the answer is both yes and no. Do they still put on a fun product? Yes. Can the company get in their own way? Also yes. I'll say this, I hope they learn their lesson from past issues. Brawl Out was no fun. The sequel Brawl In was terrible as well, and the director's cut of Brawl In was damaging. Is everything okay?
Yeah, just our moderator was just saying that some of the audio was a little bit off, so I'm just checking. I've been messing with my board
There is an old saying that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. AEW didn't learn from Brawl Out, so Brawl In happened. I hope they learned from Brawl In. I think Britt being suspended for 2 weeks isn't much of a punishment, especially with the report that came out from Andrew Zarian recently saying Baker caused multiple backstage issues that we don't know about. If it was me, is that true? Just before I have not seen that. So could you just double check that Andrew Zarian did say that? I don't want people to think something we haven't checked. If it was me, I'd suspend Britt for at least a month and pull her from All In and have Thunder Rosa replace her. It sends a message that no one is bigger than the company and shows actual leadership by reminding talent that their actions do have consequences. Honestly, if I was Tony Khan in this situation, it's what I would do.
So this is from like a week ago. This isn't the first time there's been issues with Britt.
Right, okay.
Is what Andrew Zarian had said. The thing is with that, though, is you can't suspend someone on hearsay. Like that, like what they've gone through is a actual process and looked at this incident and got their eyewitness accounts and their footage and whatnot and have judged it on this incident because that is what disciplinary actions look like. You can't just go to say like, well, we've heard that you've been causing issues elsewhere that we don't know about. You're now suspended for a month.
We don't like your vibe.
Yeah, so that's where I think it comes down to from a business standpoint.
Also, that compared to how AEW have done this in the past, where I think they probably did not address issues when they were flaring up, it does sound like they were on top of this really quickly.
Yes.
And, maybe it's been blown a bit out of proportion in the wrestling media.
No.
No.
That doesn't sound like.
Well, maybe it hasn't.
Fans.
I don't know. None of us know, really.
Yeah.
There's just a few vague details. And yeah. Let's see some more Dynamite chats. FBM3 said, this Dynamite was fine, but the Elite really needs to be a presence for the show's building to up to All In, especially if they hold the tag division belts. Yeah, I agree. I really miss the Jacksons.
That was my other pitch I was going to make for a thumbnail this week was just like, where are the Elite?
We're Elite.
Where are they? Like 2 weeks. If you're building to All In, I was going to save this when we get to their segment that they're not a part of. If you're building to All In, you need to be on the shows. If you are in a storyline that is building towards All In, you need to be on the shows. Don't 2 weeks off. Like, I get you're selling blood and guts, but Darby wrestled last week, and Mark Briscoe wrestled last week.
Jack Perry's making vignettes about
Taco
burritos.
Bell.
Yeah.
Like, I think it is a massive error that the Bucks have not been on TV for 2 weeks, and I think that has made the tag scene real messy, as they would say in Manchester.
Real Double J says, I was going to send another crazy Shane theory to try to pop Ollie this week, but my God, Hook's return look. Oversized beanie hat with an eye patch, certainly a look. I may have turned 38 yesterday, but surely I'm not that out of touch with fashion. Thoughts?
Well, he has to have the eye patch because he got fire in his eyes.
Yeah, he's selling the thing. But what low visibility to both have the eye patch and the beanie over your eyebrow.
Be honest, I did not even spot the eye patch because he wears his beanie, his oversized beanie, so low. I did not even notice that he had an eye patch on. Now that I've heard that he's got an eye patch on, it just confirms that Tony Khan bloody loves an eye patch.
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't know? Put more eye patches on people. I just think it's criminal that he's covering up that hair. I just want to see that hair all the time.
Yeah.
Hiroshi Tanahashi doesn't wear a beanie. No. He knows what the people want.
They want to see his hair and his abs.
Rafael Garcia says, seriously, who is letting Okada in the production truck? I get he likes Taco Bell, but playing it during your stablemates promo is ridiculous. Also, can we please find out who the leak is? Something good happens and bad news comes out like clockwork.
Well, that's just wrestling in general. Like, there's always going to be, there's news that comes out about WWE all the time. There's news that comes out about TNA all the time because telegram, telephone, tell a wrestler. Wrestlers bloody love to chat.
Oh, they gossip.
Oh, wrestlers love to gossip. So these things, it's not so much there is a leak. Wrestlers just like to gossip, and that's not a new thing either. That goes back decades of wrestlers love to chat. There's a reason why Dave Meltzer's been in business for so long.
I don't begrudge AEW any of their production issues this week because it sounds like there was a storm nearby. People didn't get to the show.
Hot take: this one was intentional.
Which one?
This Taco Bell one was intentional.
Really?
It's my hot take. It's my big brain theory for the week. Look how many people are talking about it. Look how many people are talking more about this promo How many people have clipped it and put it up online?
Do you think we should have had that as the thumbnail? Lost the burrito? We'll get into more on what the hell we're talking about very briefly. This episode began with MJF versus Kyle Fletcher. There was a period of time where Orange Cassidy started every episode of Dynamite. And I got conditioned, because there was no like entrance sequence, that Jane by, what's they called?
As Jefferson
Airplane.
Yeah. I was going to say Jefferson Starship then, which is them again, but it's Jefferson Airplane is what I was trying to think of.
I thought I just became conditioned that was AEW Dynamite's entrance theme.
Yeah.
Now it's MJF in my head. 4 weeks in a row he's opened the show.
That's it. Yeah. You just you load it up onto the Fight Network and it comes up with a security thing, and then bum.
Although I love that he's winning music. So
he's just a big WrestleTalk fan. He's just like, do you know what? Their review music, that's real good.
So MJF had a cracking opening match with Kyle Fletcher. I got into this.
Me too.
No, before the match began. You know, it was like last week, Angle set up, Kyle Fletcher, friend of Will Ospreay. But having to cover Max's tweets in news episodes, because I don't go on Twitter, their social media build got me into this match before the match even began.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that doesn't usually happen with me, because I'm not usually on social media.
I mean, that is what social media is supposed to be for,
well,
right? It's you are promoting a match.
Exactly. I thought it was very well done. But this was really good. Max is just playing his typical heel shtick. It gave me like sort of, remember Randy Savage in the 80s, and it would take him forever to start the match?
Yeah.
Or Bully Ray did it a lot in TNA as well. I love a heel that stalls around the ring.
God, we're really showing our age sometimes, aren't we? Like
Bully Ray?
Even that. I was watching a video on my lunch break today, and they were talking about Mario Kart DS, and it was like, it's a classic. And I'm like, no, it's not. That game's brand new.
It's like 5 years old.
It's like 5 years old. And it was like, came out in 2000. I was like, that game's nearly 20 years old.
I think how Dave Bradshaw feels.
1970s wrestling fan Dave Bradshaw.
I know Randy Savage in the 80s through watching videos of it. Dave's there like, yeah, current. So this was a great match.
It was awesome.
Brawl into the crowd at one point. Fletcher sort of dove into the crowd and posed with them. He got really over. And it wasn't what I was expecting. Because I look at Fletcher, and it's crazy that he's, 24 years old?
Yeah.
And we were watching him in York Hall shows,
5 years ago.
Longer than that.
I was going to say plus, yeah. Because when he was with Aussie Open, that was 2017 we were watching him, yeah.
So he was 16, 17 back then.
Which is nuts.
But he was always that height.
Yeah.
I guess he's just got a bit more muscly. I didn't know he was that young back then.
I cannot believe he's that young.
No, I'd push back.
No, can I? I'm going to fact check you here.
People have press ages and actual ages, like Rita Ora.
Kyle
she's not as young as she says she is.
He was born in 1998.
Shut up. Shut up.
1998. Get out on Christmas Eve, no less.
Was that before or after DS Mario Kart?
I think that's actually 7 years before Mario Kart DS. 1998. He's so young. I was in secondary school. I was actually in my second year. I was on the internet.
That's Australia for you. Because they're good at sports.
Is that so?
Yeah, look at them in the Olympics.
I don't know.
Boshing out golds every time. You're like, what do you do the rest of the time? You just have fun.
You just have fun.
And then you turn up every 4 years.
You have fun. You take our TV formats and make them better.
Yeah, that is it. So this was a really good performance. And went back and forth. What I was trying to say, by the way, was I thought it was going to be more of a flippy Ospreay match, but it wasn't. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It was MJF sort of wrestling his style of heel work, and Kyle Fletcher would just fire up and come back at him.
Yeah.
Really good stuff. And I got so into the two near falls where MJF hit a Panama Sunrise and Fletcher actually stopped that happening, got a pin, and then he hit a tombstone. And I was like, it's only a title eliminator. He could win this.
I know. I bought into a few of the Kyle Fletcher near falls. I thought this match was so well worked. It was really, really good. I saw someone say that when they see Kyle Fletcher wrestle, they're sort of being reminded of watching AJ Styles in 2002, where you're like, oh man, he's so young, but he's already got like all the tools. He just needs some experience behind him, and then he'll be incredible. Or when you saw Kenny Omega like junior heavyweight Kenny Omega, where you're like, that dude's got all of the talent, but he just needs a bit of experience behind him. And I think the same thing with Kyle. And it blows my mind that we were watching him all those years ago. But he is awesome. Really, really good. And we said this at the time. When Davis went down, not you, Mark. When Mark Davis went down, you and I were like, I hope that Kyle can get a singles push, because he's really, really good and shouldn't just be the tag guy that also goes out when his tag partner goes down.
I'll just say this now, because it's something I thought about at lunch. And I thought, yeah, maybe that does describe how I've been feeling about this. Fletcher, great. And we saw that match, him and Ospreay earlier this year. Fantastic match. Takeshita, Ricky Starks, all these guys. I might be at a point now, like NXT call-ups in the late 2010s, where I don't have faith in AEW to follow up on these great performances.
Then that's fair. I think that is a very fair comment.
But it was just like, I was like, oh my God, it's like when I'd stop getting excited for NXT call-ups after a time.
When Andrade got called up and we were like, that's not going to lead to anything. Or I remember when people got really excited about, not on their way to WWE, but when Gargano Ciampa...
the four. Malachi Black, Aleister Black and Ricochet.
And Ricochet got called up. And you did that review where you're like, why is everyone excited? Like, this has got disaster written all over it. And people really went after you for not being excited about it. But it had been beaten out of you.
Yeah.
It had been out of all of us.
The difference here is the matches are so entertaining, but I struggled to get super excited for Kyle and invested in him, because historically nothing's come to fruition after these performances.
I did see someone say that they kind of need to capitalize on Takeshita's run in the G1.
Oh my God, yeah. They should have capitalized on Takeshita last year.
Well, he beat Kenny Omega like twice in 7 days, and they were making a big gimmick out of it, and then he never got anything off the back of it.
Yeah. So just to go back to the match, the finish was Don Callis comes down after those two near falls, and he's like, the way you've got to win is to cheat. He chucks the screwdriver to Carl. And I'm like, yeah, okay, this could be the way for Fletcher to win. Certainly justified. But he goes like, oh, I can't use the screwdriver. Throws it away. Idiot babyface move, in my opinion. MJF, kangaroo kick, brainbuster, wins clean.
Yeah. It's the story of Don Callis as a bad manager, and he gives bad advice to people.
Well, usually I would agree, but in this case, MJF cheats to win all the time. MJF cheated to win with a diamond ring to beat Ospreay for his international title. Fletcher's his mate. I think the screwdriver's valid here as a babyface.
But Callis didn't need to come down and offer the advice. Kyle Fletcher was on top. He was in control. Callis distracted his own guy from taking advantage of his own advantage. That's the sort, and it's listening to Callis in one ear and being best friends with Will Ospreay in the other ear, who was being like, no, be good, virtue, and like, we don't need to do that. There's a digital thing they did where he kept saying to Ospreay, like, why wouldn't you do the move? Why wouldn't you do the move? And I was like, I'm not going to do the move. So Kyle is like, he's almost got the angel and devil with Will on one side and Callis on the other.
That's a nice story.
I don't think that's.
I wish it was told.
I don't think it's a story that, for the record, I don't think it's a story they're doing on TV. I think that is just
that's good.
That's his current character, and that's what we saw within this match.
So Max wins. He knocks out the referee. He bloodies Kyle Fletcher using the diamond ring. And Will Ospreay, meanwhile, who was watching on from his locker room, he tries to get out of his locker room, and there's a production crate stopping it. So he's a bit delayed.
So glad there was a production crate behind it, because I had WCW flashbacks in my head of Chris Jericho being like, I can't get through this locked door, but no one had locked the door, so it just opens.
MJF is just about to hit a Tiger Driver. Really cool detail there. Ospreay chases him off, and Fletcher's bladed by this point. Will, absolute pro, white t-shirt, rubs Fletcher's face all over his tit, and he just stands up. So, no, like give me a bit more juice, give me a bit more blood.
No, Kyle.
Who do you think put the crate there?
MJF,
not Don Callis.
Oh,
well, because Don's a smart guy. Kyle Fletcher isn't going to outsmart Don Callis.
No.
Don knows that Fletcher's looking at Will.
I assumed
Fletcher went into business for himself to set up this match and help Will in the first place.
I actually like that as a theory. I assumed it was Max because Max knew he was going to do the beatdown angle afterwards and was almost gloating about the fact that he was doing this beatdown angle afterwards, and Billy can't come out to make the save because I've locked him in his locker room, which is why he was so surprised when Will then did come down and he scarpered before he did the Tiger Driver. So I assumed it was Max. But I like your idea.
Thanks, man. Well, Max hasn't had a faction for like a year. So it's time. Give him a faction with the Don Callis family. Can you imagine the heel heat?
For Max,
MJF and Don Callis? Jeez. We got a Danielson video package. That was good for the Jeff Jarrett build. Then we got Mariah May squashing Viva Van from Ring of Honor. She hit a load of Toni Storm's moves to win. And then we got this awesome post-match angle.
So good.
May is given a present, and she opens it, and it's a big picture, blown-up picture of Toni Storm cradling her when they were in love. And she's like, look at this, how lame it was. And she doesn't realize when she's turned it round, there's big text on the back that says, die May, die, or die Mariah. And Toni Storm appears. They have an awesome pull-apart brawl.
Such a good pull-apart brawl. It's getting to the point now, this is my most anticipated match at All In. This is the match I'm so excited for.
They're really getting over, and I'm not into the timeless Toni Storm character. I thought there's really good bits, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just it's not for me. But this whole idea that Mariah is like, I'm going to kill you. Or not so much kill you, but this is a matter of life and death for me.
Yeah.
It's really worked.
I think this has to be a gimmick match. I really think this needs to have a big gimmick attached to it.
First Blood. But the whole match is filmed in black and white,
which will be really difficult for us then when we're watching.
Well, as soon as she gets cut, the little bit of red, like Schindler's List.
I was going to say like Sin City, but yeah, that's actually a much better pop culture reference as opposed to something again from 20 years ago now as a film. But yeah, I think this needs like a Texas death match style thing. Like this needs, because I think this is going to be a bloody affair when you get, and I think it has to be a bloody affair when they do the match at All In. Because you started with blood, like this is a blood feud,
and they've been saying die, kill, death.
I think it's got
setting my expectations.
Yeah, if it is just a straight singles match, I will be perplexed. I won't be disappointed.
Special guest referee.
I won't be disappointed. I'll be perplexed.
We got a vignette of Jack Perry, the scapegoat. He's watching a load of old CRT monitors with AEW clips on, and he starts smashing them with an axe. And he starts to talk about how he's going to sacrifice something. Now, I watched the fight feed, so this was just totally fine for me.
I saw the whole thing.
Yeah. But then everyone else in the US, it then cut to a Taco Bell advert. And it really does look like Jack Perry is going to sacrifice everything for the new $5 triple cheese layer burrito.
Which looks...
looks comically good.
I was going to say comically disgusting.
What? It looks like toy food.
Like a lot of American fast food, it looks comically disgusting.
There's no nutritional value.
Absolutely not.
Just E numbers.
Yeah. And it costing $5 is worryingly low.
Yeah, that's poorly treated animals.
That's because there's not really real animals in it.
It's just some big blob that is conscious, and they slice bits off of it.
That's got a cow's face, but speaks.
Yeah.
And they just slice bits off of it every now and again, and it regenerates. It just regenerates through E numbers.
It's horrible. Anyway, yeah, Jack Perry was there.
Yeah. So I saw this on Fight, so it was fine for me.
Darby Allin got a promo backstage, talking about how Perry doesn't show up much. No one's saying that about the Young Bucks. I'm like,
I am.
Perry's there loads for me. And then, Darby's going to be wrestling on all these shows. We got Brian Keith versus Shibata. Shibata beat Brian Keith, did an Iron Claw because he learned that from the Von Erichs when they teamed.
Yeah.
And then tapped him out in an armbar.
Hook made the save.
Learning Tree jumped Shibata afterwards, and yes, Hook made the return to make the save.
Yeah.
Now, I'm bored of this. Are you?
What, a Jericho feud that's gone on too long?
Oh man, I thought he'd won me over because I was like, Learning Tree.
No, dude. Give it one more week.
It'll get me back.
There'll be a segment and you'll come back and be like, son of a bitch has done it again.
Well, the thing is, I was into the Learning Tree and I was separately into Hook Samoa Joe and Shibata, and they just merged them and got all my favorites off TV, and now they're coming back one by one, and then it's going to be a match at All In, and then another match at All Out, and I'm like, it's been about 4 months, this Jericho Hook FTW
Has it
feud.
really been 4
Yeah,
months?
like Chris Jericho has had the FTW title for like 110 days.
Did he win it at Revolution?
Yeah, he has had it. This feud's been going on longer than Roman Reigns has been away. Seriously.
That is Chris Jericho to a T, though, isn't it?
And all I wanted was for Roman Reigns to come back and Chris Jericho to go away. So here's how I would have done it differently. The match starts and Chris Jericho and Big Bill come out and they sit on the announce desk. And Excalibur goes, Taz has been removed by security because they can't coexist on the same desk. Show that. That should have been a big angle. Chris Jericho comes out.
They've done that before,
yeah,
though.
Yeah, but do it on the one before his son returns, and maybe Taz comes out with Hook at the start.
Yeah, that would have been good. That would have been really
I just thought, like,
Yeah.
It's an open goal there.
Oh, no, I will agree with you on that one, yeah. The Hook return was very good. I am past this feud, though.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, part of them being taken off TV is really because Samoa Joe was going off to film Twisted Metal.
Block him. Just say you can't be part of that series, Joe. I need you for... We can't have...
I need to build All In, Joe.
We can't have Hook feuding with Jericho any longer.
I was into this trio when they were doing their Pulp Fiction shit.
Yeah.
But I've kind of gone off. I'm not...
because they've not been around.
Well, it's not Aiken them around, but that's kind of what's a part of the story. That's because Joe's gone off to do the filming, and you write Hook off for the exact same reason. So then, like, they've taken everyone out, and then they can all come back. So I get it. It's a very simple story, and it's a very effective story. The problem is they've been doing it they've been feuding for months. So I'm kind of past them. And then I was watching it, and I was like, are we going to do Jericho versus Hook for the FTW Championship? Like last year at All In, I was watching Hook wrestle Jack Perry for the FTW Championship. There was real glass there. Cry me a river. Like,
that's going to be all over that match, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. And I think I'm just very much done with this Jericho FTW Championship this week. And then next week, I bet you he's going to do something that's going to make me say, son of a bitch, he's done it again.
All right, well, we can hope. Renee...
Just as a correction, someone pointed out in the comments, it was $7 for the Taco Bell thing, not $5.
£5.
Even at $7.
In the conversion.
That is still comically low.
Renee interviews Orange Cassidy. This is when he reveals the rest of the conglomeration can't make it. So he's going to find some local North Carolina boys. Immediately twigged it was FTR.
Oh, I didn't.
Didn't you?
No, well, I don't really know where wrestlers are from.
Okay. And then Renee interviews Hangman. And Hangman, man, he is
so good.
He's going to burst a blood vessel.
He's so good.
I know he's acting and it's a character. I'm worried about him. I've written here, I think this is unhealthy.
He has got an unhealthy obsession.
It's so intense. I love it. But man, I worry about him. This goes into a Swerve Strickland sit-down promo filmed earlier with JR, and they're just talking up Danielson, the legacy, All In. I thought this was really good. Made it feel really historic.
Using JR, that historic voice within wrestling, who takes this so seriously, really elevated this as a segment. Like, this would not have been the same if Marvez had done it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even if it was Swerve, because Swerve was really good in this, but I think JR being there kind of elevated the segment. I thought Swerve was so cool. Talking about, like, because JR asked him a question, I thought he answered this so well, you know, in the way that it's done, which was, do you have any regrets for the things that you've done? And as, you know, if you were to do a babyface thing, you might be like, hey, look, I am sorry that I once cut a promo on a baby, but, you know, I've realized the errors of my way. He didn't say that. What he said was, you have to do things to make some noise. And I had to make some noise. He's not regretful for anything that he's done. That's part of who he is. And I think we're seeing that pay off later on in the main event segment, where he is like, I need to remind you that I am the most dangerous man in this company.
This is my Swerve.
This is my Swerve.
We got Orange Cassidy and FTR, surprise, surprise, taking on Roderick Strong, Roosh, and the Beast Mortos. This is a kind of rematch from the previous week, but FTR had to replace Briscoe and O'Reilly.
Because they got stuck because of the storm, their travel issues.
Yeah. I always think, even though I've seen him wrestle a bunch of times over the last month, that the Beast Mortos is going to remove his entrance attire and have a more manageable mask on to wrestle.
No.
And he just wrestles in it.
He's just Mantar.
I'm like...
He's like a more manageable Mantar.
Yeah. The bell did ring, right? He's gonna take it off soon. I love him. He's so good. And this is a sort of Meltzer and Alvarez observation. A couple of weeks ago, you'll go into this match. Yeah, Beast Mortos is taking the pin.
We said this last week.
And I think he's genuinely gotten over so much. Roosh is taking the pin.
But I think
Roosh does not take pins.
Well, I think that's again a Callis thing, because Callis was really angry that Roosh took the pin, and they were pointing out there's two of your guys that have taken losses tonight. So I think Roosh taking the pin is very purposeful here in a story that we are telling within the Callis family.
What do you think that story is?
Implosion of the group, maybe.
MJF coming in.
Yeah, it could be like Takeshita coming back, because with the G1 will be over at some point soon. They'll maybe pay off something there. He'll come back and be like, hey, look how well I did in the G1. What's happening here? Oh, all these guys are losers.
Love a losing storyline for a cool, serious act. So this was a really fun match. It's not the same level of fun as the six-man craziness we've had before. I think FTR got in there. They worked a more FTR match, and everyone else kind of more accommodated to that. Can't really fault them. It's a last-minute change. Still really enjoyable. Taven and Bennett jump Dax on the outside. All builds to a Cassidy hot tag. Mortos misses Cassidy on the barricade and he takes out Taven and Bennett. And Roosh tries to take on both of FTR. Almost does it. They hit a big rig and they pin Roosh.
It is not the usual trios match fun, because it was more like an FTR style thing, but it was still really, really fun. And within this, they clearly watched the show. Taken on my fantasy booking pitch that I made, they announced the Casino Gauntlet match for All In. Here's my two big pitches, my two big brain thinkings for what's going to happen in that match. Moxley's in it.
Oh, what a return!
And could possibly win it as well.
Yeah.
Because then if Danielson does win the belt, you can set up Moxley versus Danielson as a match you can do down the line.
Yeah, that's great.
Michael Oku's in it.
That's the perfect use of him as well. Let's see how he interacts with MJF and Will Ospreay in the build.
So the report is he might be factored into Dynamite plans for when they do the show in Cardiff the week before All In. So apparently there's talk about him, and he put out something on Twitter and Instagram last night that was like him being asked in loads of interviews, "Are you going to be at All In? Are you going to be at All In?" So I think he himself is teasing that he might do something at All In.
Oh, I hope so. What a guy, Michael.
Such a good guy, and a great person to be the figurehead for British wrestling at the moment. And he's going to get battered by Luke Jacobs at that Rev Pro show.
But what I like about Michael Oku, because a lot of people won't be familiar with him because he's Rev Pro. He's appeared on some of our shows on PFK. He's such a good tweener.
I say this about him all the time, and he loves it when you say it as well.
Yeah, because he's like, the tweener is what I aspire to be as a professional. He hates it. He hates tweeners. He hates the idea of tweeners. Yeah. He's a babyface heel kind of guy.
He is so going to clip that out and use it against you.
That's why I thought I had to explain, just for people who thought we weren't joking.
If you are going to the Rev Pro show this coming Sunday, by the way, keep an eye out for us, because we're going to be there for what is a stacked old Rev Pro show, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's headlined by Michael Oku versus MJF for the AEW American Championship.
The Patriarchy get a promo, and Christian reveals that House of Black are going to take on the Bang Bang Gang on Collision. The winner will get the Trios title shot at All In, and Christian's going to be the special guest referee.
And he'll definitely have a turtleneck referee outfit on as well.
Yeah. I love this. I think it's a really good direction to go in. I think Christian's not going to let either. I think it's going to be the classic heel screws over both teams.
Yeah.
Tony Khan talks to a guy who talks to a guy who talks to a guy. Adam Pearce comes out. Well, you'll have to defend against both teams at All In.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's a lot of fun. I think it's a really fun direction for the match. Obviously, this is not the original plan. The reported original plan for All In was supposed to be, and they had been setting this up on TV as well. It was supposed to be Death Triangle going for the Trios titles. I think it was probably supposed to be Death Triangle versus the Bang Bang Gang, because then Jay White got injured and they had to do all this switcheroo and stuff, because they set up that they were going to have a rematch. But the Lucha Bros are heading to WWE by all accounts. Penta's deal's up at the end of this month, and Phoenix is up next month. So they've had to completely scrap their All In plans and shift to this instead.
Pac. He's also got a championship shot.
Yeah, he's got one at the international championship.
Yeah. Forgot about that one.
So I guess he'll be in the gauntlets.
Yeah.
And maybe he can win that as well. And then he's got 2 title matches.
I'll tell you who else might be in the gauntlet. It's the guy we got a vignette for next. He's so cool and fast. It's Hologram.
You describe this as Tony Khan's teenage creator wrestler, and it so is. Like, you make this guy on Here Comes the Pain.
I'm just there's a few things, you know, you imagine Triple H as a teenager and Tony Khan as a teenager. It's like, yeah, I've been wanting to make Rampage all my life. I had this idea when I was a teenager, is what Tony Khan said. I'm like, wow, what's this show gonna be? Oh, it's an hour-long wrestling show. I'm like, what's different about this?
I remember when Tony was on Restricted, the AEW podcast, and he talked about, remember when Scorpio Sky pinned Chris Jericho and he got a shot at the world title? Like, very early doors of Dynamite and stuff. There was like one of the first kind of story angles that they did is that Scorpio Sky pinned Jericho in a tag match, and that set up a world title match the following week. Tony Khan was like, I've had that idea in my head since I was like, I wanted to book that on a TV show since I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And so there are certain things I think that he has just had in his head from when he was a wrestling fan, going to ECW shows in the late 90s that he's wanted to do. And Hologram just feels like this is one of his teenage passion projects.
Yeah, feels weirdly early noughties in a way.
No, I think you're right. I think this feels 90s. I think this feels
90s trying to be futuristic.
Yeah, because this feels very WCW. This feels like WCW bringing in Glacier.
Then we had the Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker segment, Swerve Danielson video package, the announcement that, well, not Claudio versus Okada for the Continental title next week. I thought Okada Hangman Page was going to be the all-in direction.
I did too, until, so we might as well talk about this now. They had an after-show digital exclusive. The only reason I found out about this is because the fight feed, while we didn't get the Taco Bell interruption, the fight feed was cut early, so I didn't see the end of the Swerve promo. So I had to go to YouTube to see the end of the Swerve promo. And that's where I saw this digital exclusive. And they had a backstage brawl, which was Mariah May and Toni Storm, and Hangman and Jarrett. And then I was like, oh, Hangman Jarrett's the all-in match, which is something that Tempest had pitched a couple of weeks back. And I was like, oh, I don't think doesn't feel like that's a really big match for Hangman. And then I've been thinking like, oh, it's probably going to be Hangman Okada for the Continental Classic, which is that's also a fine little match. Then when they did that brawl, I was like, oh no, I think it is. And I don't know, like I've heard through the grapevine, and this is only like one person has told me, so I'm not saying this is an official report, but I'd heard through the grapevine that one of the reasons why they have got all in for this weekend is because of Jeff Jarrett. Is Jeff Jarrett pulled some strings with Taylor Swift because Taylor Swift used to babysit for him when Taylor Swift was a teenager. And he pulled some strings because she's doing her shows at Wembley. And so when I was thinking about that, like this person telling me that, then seeing this angle and being like, I suppose if you're Tony Khan, you've got to give Jarrett a big match at All In.
If the Casino Gauntlet's right there.
If he is a man who is really responsible for you getting All In at Wembley, you've got to give him a big match. So him versus Hangman, which has been building for like 2 months now, does feel like a really good idea.
I mean, it's a fine match. I just think the Okada one is
bigger,
is better,
but Okada,
more story.
But Okada doesn't know Taylor Swift.
Yes, well, he knows of her, I'm sure.
Well, we can presume.
So Danielson then took on Jeff Jarrett in the main event with Ricky Steamboat as a special guest. Nothing else, just he's a special guest.
Yeah, he did commentary.
Not a referee. Just say guest announcer.
Yeah, but that's not as enticing a prospect, is it?
Doesn't feel as misleading either. I hear special guest, and it's either referee or enforcer.
Well, I think that's a you problem.
So Danielson comes out, and Jeff Jarrett attacks him right away because this is no DQ with a guitar. And then it was like TNA for a bit.
Yeah, the reason why he attacked him with the guitar, I thought it was actually a really nice story beat, is because Jarrett he didn't do it because he's a baddie, he needs a heel. He did it because he's trying to teach Danielson a lesson. You need to be prepared for anything. And Danielson in that moment was not prepared. So Jarrett taught him a lesson.
Yeah, and that was the sort of dynamic for the whole match. Jeff Jarrett was trying to kill Bryan Danielson to make him stronger. And at the end, they still embrace and raise each other's hands. But yeah, like Jarrett gave it his all here. They brawl up the crowd. They go into the concourse. And then that bin just started lobbing the bin at Danielson.
Suplexes on the bin. That bin had no give.
I enjoyed that. It was JJ twats a bin at Danielson here. Absolutely twatted that bin. Suplexes on him onto it. Then they come down, and like the concourse was packed with so many fans as well.
It was awesome. You're right, very TNA, but with fans.
Jarrett gets the figure 4 in. Danielson uses a chair and just whacks Jarrett's legs with it to get out. Jeff Jarrett hits a stroke
of course he does.
Onto the chair.
Oh,
surely that's it.
That's the finish to every TNA match in like 2005.
And then kick out, obviously. Jarrett gets the sharpshooter on for Owen. Danielson gets the label lock. And then ultimately it was a running knee with the chair to win.
Yeah.
Like really, really good main event.
Really fun main event. I had a tremendous time with it.
Team TNA are down right away. They're tending to Jarrett, who's got blood on his ear.
I think it was from the chair shot.
Yeah. And only Wheeler Yuta comes down to help Danielson. Is Claudio in the Blackpool Combat Club anymore?
Yeah, but he's preparing for Okada next week. For their face-to-face.
Face-off. And then Ricky, special guest hand raiser, comes down and raises both men's hands. But then Swerve comes down and he starts to say, it's great to see 3 legends of TNT programming. Jeff Jarrett, Ricky Steamboat, and Swerve Strickland. He got me. He got me. They've all been world champions here. Wait. They've all been world champions on TNT.
Yes.
I think is what he's saying. Danielson hasn't. It's going to be Swerve's honor to end his career. Then our feed cut off. Over to YouTube very quickly. So next week, Swerve is going to have a match with Wheeler Yuta to show Danielson why he's the most dangerous man in AEW.
I feel like poor Wheeler Yuta is going to bleed next week.
Oh my God, he's going to get murderized.
Yeah. Did he get gagged?
That's the show. Enjoyable show. I gave it 72%, I think.
Yeah, it's the midpoint before a pay-per-view show.
Yeah.
I think the reason why it doesn't feel like as big of a deal, like because we've seen this trend in AEW, and you see it on like all TV, wrestling TV shows as well. You have that sort of like midpoint when you're coming off a pay-per-view and you're not quite on the final stretch for a pay-per-view. You're just in that saggy middle pit here. I think it's because it's come off an incredibly hot SummerSlam and an awesome episode of Raw that has really like lessened the impact. Like, it's hurt it even more. Like it being a fine show and any other week would have felt fine, but coming off the back of an incredible SummerSlam and that's such a good episode of Raw, it feels like, man, you didn't try at all this week.
Yeah. And before we get on to our remaining Omegachats, let's say a big thank you to our wonderful Pledgehammers on Patreon, The Cleaner, Kenny Shah.
The British Bulldog, Philip Boyd J. Smith Jr.
He can last Sean Fur longer than you in the ring.
Starbucks, Stephen Costa.
Shield Maiden, the Zornice.
Burley, Rob Burwell.
He ran, Aaron Hanrahan.
He brings the fear, Amir Jones.
Let him cook, Alex.
Apok Alex now.
Andrew Gifford, the Big Red Dog.
I'm afraid he's got some bad news. It's bad news, Bob the Ninja Goldfish.
Thank you, everybody who is a patron over there. Please do go over to support us on Patreon. We've said on a couple of the videos over the last week how, YouTube money's down.
Isn't it just?
So please do go over to support us there on Patreon. It helps us make everything that we make here. And we give you stuff back as well. There's exclusive shows, WrestleTalk Extra. We've got our new arc starting this month.
Oh, we certainly do. We're going back into TNA Town as well. We're looking at Joe versus Angle and the 5-match series that they had across their sort of like when Angle first came into TNA. So we're going to be like covering a couple of years across our 5-month podcast series we're going to do. But it means that we get to see all sorts of TNA along that way. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. I've watched a couple of bits of it already in the preparation for it. Rewatched Angle's debut.
Oh, it's so good.
Which is so good.
Yeah.
When Joe rises up behind him with blood pouring down his head and that headbutt. It's awesome.
Yeah, and there's also the whole first series of WrestleTalk Extra the new version of WrestleTalk Extra, where we did the breakup of the Shield. 7 episodes long, like 25 hours, all on video.
Absolutely.
And you can get that on Patreon as well. So patreon.com/WrestleTalk. Please go over there.
If I can also put a play out as well, can you make sure you leave a comment down below, because we think we may have stumbled upon something that YouTube are going to be doing away with views.
Oh, I don't think they'll do that, but they're trying something.
Yeah. So we've seen some people have been like, oh yeah, I don't see views on videos anymore. I just see the amount of comments that have been left. So please leave a comment, because I think that'll be what the new driver is.
Right. Remaining Omegachats. Bobby G says, whose house? Definitely not Brian's. But seriously, 2 Washington State lads fighting for championship and career. I truly feel Brian is defeated at All In, and Swerve is rocketed as one of the greatest wrestlers in our current timeline through this win.
It's a big old win to have.
I saw an interesting bit of fantasy booking. Brian wins here. You get the big surprise, I guess, victory at All In. And Swerve beats him with career on the line again at Wrestle Dream, which is in Seattle.
It is, yeah.
Which is both guys.
But yeah, they're both from Seattle, yeah.
Yeah. Aaron Hamrahan, hey, we just gave you a shout out. Hi guys, really excited for All In. Really happy the Casino Gauntlet is on the card. Really like that match. Lots of singles matches, which is a thumbs up. I think it will be better than last year. Also, really enjoying Patreon. These last 3 years, great content.
What a guy.
Oh, he does have plugs for us. Patreon.com/WrestleTalk.
Thanks, Aaron.
FBM3 says, as an old school Western fan, I really love how Hangman's moustache and look evolve from the man with no name to Angel Eyes as he gets more heelish.
I think it just gets thicker and thicker during his promos.
I don't know. I love Westerns. I don't know Angel Eyes.
I'm not a Western guy.
Will Morris, overall a very average show. 2 weeks in a row with no Bucks or Okada is a strange decision, especially when trying to build Wembley matches. Also, what do you think the All-In plans are now for Hangman and his moustache when in the Casino Gauntlet match?
I mean, maybe he could be in the Casino Gauntlet, like a way for him to get the a shot at Swerve, which actually is a really good position for him to be in. To be honest, like my Jarrett thing is just based on that one thing that I was told, that I was like, oh, you got to give Jarrett a big match.
Homer Star, can't wait for the Casino Gauntlet match. It'll be the closest I'll ever get to see in a Royal Rumble. Hoping we see Ricochet debut in the match. Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
I think Ricochet will be in it, yeah.
And Bobby. But if I was Tony Khan, I'd put Shane McMahon in the match just for fun.
Yeah. I mean, for the lols, right?
Imagine Ricochet, Bobby Lashley, and then Shane McMahon. Boom,
yeah,
boom. It's All In 2021 again.
And they all come out in white t-shirts.
I'll be very sweaty though. Shane McMahon and Bubbles Lashley in white t-shirts,
sliding off,
see-through.
Oh man,
bald. Says
it's not me, I swear.
Since the Owen winners get title shots at All In, they really need to carry the belt or drop the belt prize for the Owen. Also, remember when Pac became #1 contender and his promo was about All In, lol? Welp. Lastly, who is Sir Gawain, lol? That's from the latest episode of Control Freaks Video Game Club. It's in Spider Heck.
Pac didn't become the #1 contender for All In, nor did he cut a promo saying I'm going to be at All In. He won a match that was like a contendership match. Separately to that, he won a match where he said, I want to do something at All In. That was supposed to be a trios match thing, but the Lucha Bros are going elsewhere.
I think it's messy.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not messy. I'm just making sure that we're all clear on the timeline.
Charles Berg, Memberg for 38 months. Question for Ollie. In the AEW review, you said Ospreay's shirt looks like yours after a double Big Mac. Why does your shirt get bloody? How are you eating it?
I feel that was written because that you did that after the Golden Mile.
Well, it's ketchup.
Well, it's got the burger sauce. There's no
ketchup
in a Big Mac.
You know what I mean, the saucy sauce.
There's the burger sauce. There's the Big Mac burger sauce. It's not ketchup in it.
Well, that's what chips as well.
It just felt like it was written from personal experience because you did that on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is, Charles. Had a food fight at McDonald's. Oh, I always do every year. Every year, we can't help ourselves.
The absolute worst.
We're like, not this year, guys. We're gonna behave. Chips.
And that's how you end up with ketchup everywhere.
Brambles says, will any of the WrestleTalk team be at All In? It will be my very first in-person wrestling show, and I can't wait to see MJF and Will live.
We certainly will be. We're making a big weekend of it. We're going to be, if anyone's in the area, we're at Riot Cabaret on the Friday, we're at Rev Pro on the Saturday, and then at All In on the Sunday. I was tempted to also go to Hustle on the Saturday as well, but I can't go to that show anymore. And we will be announcing something soon, fan meetup wise, All In weekend as well. So keep your eyes peeled to socials and here on the podcast channel, because we'll be announcing something next week.
It'll be fun. What a weekend.
I'm so excited.
And finally, for now, Nick Carvello says, hey guys, hope you're well. What you said about comparisons to 2010's NXT call-ups definitely relates to the underutilization of the Lucha Bros, and I understand their desire to leave. I just wish Penta had a singles title run and we got Darby versus Phoenix once.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm going to push the narrative of or buy into the narrative of the underutilization of the Lucha Bros when they have been a consistently pushed act on TV and were tag team champions a couple of years ago. I think it is more a case of they have done everything. Like, there is nothing really else for them to do. Like, we talked about this with the Young Bucks. Like, well, we've done that multiple times, in fact. And I think this is what's healthy about having two flourishing companies, is that at the end of 5 years, you'll be like, look, I've accomplished everything I can here for now. I'll go to the other place for 5 years. And then by that point, that 5 years company will now look different. I can go back there and have some more fresh matchups. That's the beauty of having two good places to go and work. I think it's just, there's no need for them to re-sign. They've done everything else that there is to do in AEW.
I agree with both. I think they've done everything they were given in AEW, so definitely time for a change. But I don't think they were ever used to the full extent of their potential.
I would say that about Proud and Powerful. I would not say that about the Lucha Bros.
Or that Lucha Bros tag title run was like a lame duck Young Bucks title change waiting to happen. Penta should have had a singles run on, like, I'm serious, in a main event world championship slot.
That I would agree
Phoenix
with.
should have had a TNT title run on a
he was going to have the
mid-card belt.
international run, but then he got hurt.
Yeah, well, but that was like a year after he started getting really over in these matches with Nick Jackson.
No, well, yeah, so 2 years probably after that, because that was like 2019 was when they were having their first match.
Well,
but then again, that's Lucha Bros and Young Bucks stuff. They had the trio series with the Elite as well. Like, I think it really was. They've just done everything that there is, apart from big singles runs. But it's a stacked main event scene that there was kind of no room for them in. And they're not going to have a singles run in WWE either.
You know how I feel about Penta.
I know how you feel, and I agree. But I would totally agree on the point that for Proud and Powerful, I don't think you can say the same for the Lucha Bros.
That's all we've got time for today. Let's find out the poll results.
Yes, let's have a look.
I said 72, remember?
Not huge. I mean, they're not in step with you this week. 51% thumbs up.
Oh, wow.
36% in the middle.
That is very low thumbs up for an AEW show.
Very low.
But it was a mid episode.
Honestly, I'd actually agree with that result.
But for now, please go over to patreon.com/WrestleTalk and see if there's any way you want to support us over there, shucks. And also go over to Control Freaks and watch the brand new Video Game Club episode where we all play Spider Egg. But for now, I've been Ollie Davis. That's been Luca and DAD. Jam that jam.
Jam that jam.